Hello and welcome to the Single Malt Frontier, where we explore the edge of innovation in American single malt whiskey. Here on the show, we do a little bit of tasting and a lot of talking. Usually, we talk about whiskey. But the best thing about whiskey is the conversations we get to have along the way, and we get to talking about a little bit of everything. I'm your host, Doug, or as I'm known around the internet, Demi Tastes. Our guest today is Amanda Swift, co-owner, co-founder, distiller at Swift Distillery, a woman who wears many hats. Swift is located in Central Texas, near Dripping Springs, which is pretty close to Austin, but not quite in it. So there's this fun thing with Texas being so big. I went to school in Texas, so Dripping Springs means something to me, and I'm not sure that that's necessarily true for everyone else. It's kind of the same thing. I grew up in Houston. If you're from Houston, I get a lot more specific, right? So.
Mhm.
It's a fun thing trying to locate places in Texas. Swift Distillery, I'm told, is not open to the public, but Dripping Springs is roughly halfway between sort of downtown Austin area and where you would find Andalusia whiskeys. So for people who are familiar with all of those locations, that gives you at least a little bit of a map to go on. It's always kind of fun to like find where people are, because I think we realize that people are a lot closer together than you would think sometimes. And even though you're not open to the public, the right kind of whiskey nerd might want to try to fit you into a trip and could reach out and get in touch. But
We'll
before
definitely come visit.
before I extend that invitation on your behalf, let me hand it over to you, Amanda. If you wouldn't mind, could you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your brand and what you do?
Yeah, I am Amanda Swift, and my husband Nick and I own Swift Distillery. We started this about 13 years ago, legally. We started before that, probably a couple years, kind of learning our craft. We spent time in Ireland, Scotland, France, and Japan, learning to distill, and we decided we wanted to start a distillery. I can't really say there's any good real reason we chose to do this. My husband is the dreamer, and I am the practical one. And we both have always loved single malts. So started drinking probably way before it was legal in the state of Texas. But being as I'm from a good Irish Catholic family, they started us young. And we've been doing this for 13 years now. So we only make single malts. That's what we're passionate about. We kind of follow the traditional Scotch making techniques, and that's kind of the start of it. I have a background in biology, and Nick has a background in art and food. We have paintings all over our house. He's a watercolor artist. He's very talented. And we have a little fox on our logo. So Nick is the Swift, and I'm the fox. It actually comes from my hair color. A snip happy graphic designer took a chunk of my hair and made a Pantone. So I'm the fox.
Oh, that's
And
beautiful. So that's actually a Pantone based on your hair color.
And it's kind of in a watercolor like theme, so it's for Nick and I. And we have these cute little gray foxes, are the ones that are all over Texas. They actually climb trees, and so in our original facility, which was in Dripping Springs, we had them out the back of our office window, and they had babies every year who would like live under our chillers, and they're just cute little creatures. And I currently have them in my backyard in Austin, where they're not as cute because they're loud and they try to eat your trash.
Okay, I hate to do this, but what does the fox say?
They make these horrible, like screeching, barking, awful noises, and I don't even think I can come close to doing it because it's terrible sounding.
I
Have you listened to that song? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking
Did
about.
they
Yeah,
get close on any of them?
no, they they make a lot of like chattering noises, and then they sound like a cat dying, screaming.
Hmm.
Like
Mhm.
when cats fight, that's kind of what their little gray ones sound like. They're cute
Whenever I've
though.
seen foxes, they've just been completely quiet, so I don't think I've ever heard a fox sound.
They're
we
not.
get
Yeah,
the eastern red foxes around where I live, and they
yeah.
like to follow us around the block when we're walking the dog. And every once in a while, they just make a little yipping noise. And if they
Hmm.
really want your attention, they scream, and they sound like a small child being heard.
Hmm.
Yeah, they're really vocal. Ours are vocal, like you can easily hear them, and they're not usually happy sounding. I don't
Hmm.
really know why they sound mad all the time, but at our place in Driftwood, there's not as many of them, but we're a little further back from the road and things, so I think we just don't see them.
Okay, cool. So I want to get right on into
Yeah, let's go.
bids. So first of all, the places that you mentioned you visited and I guess trained,
Yeah.
those are, for listeners who may not be familiar, and I think my audience probably is very familiar. Those are all of the places that are world renowned for making great single malt whiskey. Got
Yeah. I
established.
mean, the
Even
Scotch started it, the Japanese kind of perfected it to their own style. And then we spent a lot of time in France learning from cognac because cognac, I think, in a lot of ways is very similar,
Hmm,
especially with like their aging techniques. And we've been really fortunate to work with some really cool cognac producers. And I love cognac. That's just one of those. It's just an interesting spirit because it's taking something very basic like the grape, same with us with barley, and then it turns into this like beautiful complex thing through its techniques, its distillation, its yeast, its barrel aging process, and all the rest of it. So it's kind of fun. And then Irish whiskey, of course, good Irish girl. I love my Irish whiskey too. We were fortunate enough to get to know Brian Nation when he was at Jameson for a long time. He was a wonderful mentor to us for years. And then we spent a lot of time with Nika in Japan and then the
love
people at
Nika.
Macallan's. So I love Macallan's too. That's probably my first scotch that really made me love single malt because no matter how many years go by, I still love Macallan 12.
Nice.
Yeah, that's my go-to if I'm gonna have a drink out somewhere. If I'm not, that doesn't happen often. I have a 6-year-old. We don't drink out. We don't go out.
Fair.
So
Phil, I don't know. Do you have any Macallan anymore? I have a bottle of Macallan 15 still.
I do not have any Macallan. I don't think I even have my little sample bottle anymore.
Hmm. Oh,
It's
did I send you a sample of Macallan or?
no, I had a little 50 milliliter that someone gifted me, but no, I have a tendency to use the Macallan Sherry Oak 12
mhm.
when I have people over who appreciate good Scotch but aren't interested in having their palate destroyed by peat.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do enjoy peat, but only like the Octomore is probably as far as I'll go for liking it. I can appreciate Lefroy and the rest of them, but not my first choice of a drink. But life is
That's
long. I
really
may get there.
interesting. I think that's a bit of a hot take to like Octomore before Lafroig. Octomore is usually you've got to really like the smoky flavor, right? I get it though, because it's not the same. Lafroig is real medicinal and Octomore is this more sort of bright barbecue kind of thing.
See, I think it's I'm a Texan. Like Octomore, for whatever reason, like reminds me of eating barbecue as a
Right,
kid. Like
right.
there's something about it. Plus, it's got that I don't know. There's a sweetness to it that like Lafroig doesn't have yet. Lafroig has more of those like herbal notes, whereas like I forget which Octomore it is. It's the one in the black. I'm terrible at remembering these. I'd have to go through my pictures. It's one in the black bottle, or like the black canister. You probably have it.
Yeah, and actually, well, I
Yeah,
grabbed the
that
wrong
one.
one, but I have the 10.2 and the 10.4. The 10.2 is a Sauterne cask, which would be relevant today.
Yeah. See, it's the other one though that I do like most of the Sauterne cast, but it's the other one that there's something about it that tastes like it should go with barbecue to me, whereas I prefer that to like a Lafroig or like a Ardbeg or something. Those don't. I have a lot of opinions.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Let them loose. I feel like people sometimes we as a show get too technical, and like I think we need more hot takes, really.
I am all about I don't hold back usually. And but that's the fun of whiskey though. It's very like based on what you like. I think it's very emotional when you drink. It's like what
Hmm.
because people always want to say, oh, it tastes like such and such. And you're like, no, it's like, well, how do you feel it? Like I always try to tell people don't taste it first, really. Like think about it as like a whole. Like actually try to convince people not to smell it or look at it first. Like I love doing whiskey tastings in dark glasses so people can't see it or think about it and do that first hit on your palate where you like hold it, shove it on the roof of your mouth like you do with a cognac and really like feel what it feels like going down and then, taste it again and then smell it the third time when you do it. That's kind of my favorite way of doing it because it tricks you into like thinking about it from your own perspective, not what you think. Because I feel like there's all these preconceived notions that come with how you should do things with whiskey, which I hate. Like,
Yeah.
drink it how you like it. I've been preaching that for years. Like, whiskey should really be for everyone, and there is a kind of whiskey that most people can enjoy. That's kind of my take on that.
Yep. This is kind of a good segue to, I just recorded I would say segment. It was going to be a podcast.
Hmm.
And I was like, let's just see how this goes. So I mentioned, I had some people over and we did a whiskey tasting. And I convinced my best friend and my sister-in-law to sit on camera with me and do this tasting.
Oh
And
yeah.
just like, maybe this could be a podcast. Maybe we'll have some interesting conversations. I think we did. It might ramble too much for podcasts, so I think it'll be better as segment content. I basically had them go through this shelf behind me and pick out
Hmm.
bottles they thought looked interesting. And the very first bottle in the lineup was actually the Swift. And the reason why is my sister-in-law likes foxes.
Yep.
And she also likes Sauternes. And she saw the fox and then she read the label and she's like, we have to taste this. It was the first one. I put them roughly in order of what I thought would like ruin people's palates the least as we progressed. So this one
Mhm.
ended up first in the lineup, and it actually ended up being one of the favorites, which
Yeah.
that's not even coming
I
from
love
my
that.
opinion now. I get to come into this podcast and tell you that two people who have had plenty of whiskey but aren't like snooty about whiskey. They don't really have
Yeah.
deep opinions about it. They've had bad whiskey in other spirits and they've had good whiskey in other spirits, but most of the fun, unique stuff they've gotten to try is actually when they visit me.
Yeah.
So they're not coming in with these preconceived notions, right? The fact that this is light in color. It's one of the
Yeah.
first things that'll stand out to somebody who collects whiskey. Like, oh, that's really light in color. Somebody who's really into like ex-bourbon scotch, like myself, looks at things in that color and says, delicious things come in shades of pale. That is a good thing for
Yeah.
me. And they just looked at that and they were like, hey, can you just tell me why it's so much lighter than other whiskey? And so I got to have that conversation from a place of curiosity instead of from a place of criticism, which was really nice.
I love that. Like for us, it was always about like we kind of joke about this. I do not want to be the best thing you've ever had. Period. The end. Like that is not my goal. I want to be that thing that people like to drink because they think it tastes good.
Mhm.
Like everyone loves, vanilla and chocolate ice cream. No, nobody, if you like ice cream and you offer somebody, do you want vanilla or chocolate? They're gonna pick one or the other, right? They're good. They're good for a reason. You know what I mean? It's like it's a classic. It's something simple. It's got enough complexity to it. You can taste things, but it's not going to smack you in the face. It's not going to be intimidating. Like we kind of joke that we're the gateway into trying it because our bottle is probably a little bit more like whimsical looking. It's just a little more fun. We're lighter in color. We say some keywords you might recognize. People sometimes know Sauterne. Olorosa sherry again is things they recognize, but they don't think of those as like, ooh, I'm gonna get hit in the face with it. And they
Mhm.
try it, and it's like their start into that journey because whiskey is a really fun journey, and I feel like it's off-putting if you get, the first thing you ever taste is Lafroig, and you're like, ooh, I don't want to do this. Or if you get, a bourbon that's really just has a big bite to it, or like a rye, that might not encourage you to continue your journey on that. It's like everybody has that one tequila story where it's like you were too drunk to walk home, you were awful the next day. But tequila is a cool spirit too. They've got all this complexity to it, but you get stopped because you had Jose Cuervo and you were sick the next day or
Yep.
3 days, however
Uh,
it goes.
we've been doing
So,
this long enough, Phil. You might remember I've told this story before, the Great Tequila Incident.
yeah,
Uh, and it's not what you think, which is actually really funny. It wasn't that somebody got sick and threw up. It was I forget what year it was because it sounds better when you can say. I think it was the Great Tequila Incident of 2014, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken. And what happened was my roommate and I were in the community, not the community, the school orchestra at the UT Austin.
hmm,
And we wanted to have a house party to sort of wrap up the season. And we invited the orchestra. But somehow the invitation to the party got translated into the conductor told everyone, we're having a party, invite whoever you want. So Instead of
Yeah.
having like 20 people, we thought
Mhm.
we had like 60 people, a whole bunch
Yep.
of which we'd never met before. And one of them was probably underage, but I didn't card anybody, so I don't know, and that's probably to my advantage.
Mhm.
Poured themselves a nice big solo cup of tequila,
Oh, gross.
took a sip, said I hate that, and then poured it back in the bottle. And my housemate's girlfriend saw that and was like, I don't know this person, so we're gonna dump out that tequila now.
That's pretty funny. Nick and I have one because I went to UT as well, and he went to St. Edward's, where we lived on South Congress back when South Congress was cheap. This is
Mhm.
like 2005, maybe six. And we went to Guerrero's, and we had probably been out doing something all day. I think I went running before it, and we were like waiting for a table, and I had like two margaritas, but at Guerrero's there were probably 6 ounces of tequila, and he must have had three, and we were too drunk to walk home.
Mhm.
So yeah, we all have that tequila story. Although I think because I was young enough, I was probably like 21. We were not hungover the next day. We didn't feel great, I'm sure, but I do remember being too drunk to walk home and trying to like cross the street to get back to our apartment and thinking we're gonna get hit by a car, but we made it. It probably wasn't pretty, but we did it. That's my like one and only time I think I've ever truly been like drunk.
Yep, we've all got to have one. That's how you learn, right?
I
Yeah.
mean, and margaritas sneak up on you. I
They
mean,
do.
At Guerrero's, because they're literally like 1 ounce of lime juice, probably like a splash of agave, and then 4 or 5 ounces of tequila. And you don't realize it because you're like, oh, you're eating chips. You think,
mm,
oh, I'll just have two, you'll be fine. No, you will not be fine.
Yeah,
So
that's a half a bottle of tequila right there.
pretty much, yeah. I don't know. I
Oh
haven't been to
man.
Guerrero's in like a decade, but drinking margaritas at least. I don't know if they still do that, but if they do, don't do that.
I remember the name of the place. I can't remember if I've had an insane strong margarita there. So I
You
couldn't
have,
tell
you
you.
know. They're known for it, so
And also I left Austin in 2015. So
yeah.
whether they're still there and still doing it, I don't know. But yeah. I was just sticking my nose in these glasses, and once again I am surprised at just how aromatic they are.
A lot of
Uh
that comes to the
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say a lot of that comes down to the cask choices we use. So and the barley itself as well as the yeast. So everything we chose was based on flavor. So we use the traditional like M1 Scotch making yeast, which has this really beautiful like fruity floral profile, which comes through. And then we use Concerto, which is the variety of barley we use. We don't have any problem sharing that, by the way. That's like we've used a couple of them over the years. Laureate. We tried Mars Otter. I've never used Golden Promise because I just don't like it. I really want Diablo, but they're not making that too available yet. I'm hoping that's the latest strain. But those nice malty cereal notes, and our barley has this really nice nuttiness. That's kind of one of the things I love with Concerto is there's that kind of like soft hazelnut kind of thing to it that comes through. And then we use copper pot stills. So, and we run them very cold and pretty slow. So you retain a lot of that flavor. And our stills are basically perfectly spherical with nice, like
Hmm.
bulbous tops. Because when you're distilling, my goal is to keep as much flavor possible from your base products. Because why would I be shipping grain from Scotland if I'm not going to get the flavor through for it? So that's kind of our goal with that.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask you. I haven't shared a picture on my screen in a while, so I'm not going to try. But you sent me this picture, and I was like, my first reaction was, "Wow, that looks like an onion dome."
Yep, that's what they look like. So I always kind of think of like their little Russian artistic things, although they're made in Portugal. But the goal is for with our type of still that we're looking for is that spherical still. So like you can either have like a more elongated still or you could have like a squattier still. So things like heavier scotches are going to be more squashed, and that's going to give you like more. I want to say like vegetable-y kind of flavors, and that really does retain a lot of the barley notes. But the problem with that is you're going to have to age that out. So you got to get rid of that kind of stuff that needs to be aged out, and I just don't have that kind of time, nor is that really what my style was we were going for. But yeah, that long kind of bulbous looking top, that really is what's going to keep those like floral notes in there. So like if you think of things as they're evaporating, you want it to kind of go at a slow and steady pace up. And then as it gets to the top of that column, it, you know, narrows down quite a bit, and then it'll start cooling quickly. And that really helps retain that flavor and also keeps it clean, because that's important for us. And everything we do is double distilled, which is pretty traditional for Scotch making. And then a lot of the flavor does come from the barrel. So for us, our bourbon barrels, we've tried a lot, and we kind of do vary them. So we've got, yeah.
I couldn't help myself. I had to pull
No,
up.
I always think they're pretty. I was like, I pet them. We don't have names for them, and I always think I should name them something ridiculous, but I would name them after like book characters that nobody would get the reference to. Because I'm a book girl. Like, give me a murder mystery, give me a horrible like vampire book. I have no shame in what I'll read. But
okay, yeah. So you answered a few of my questions. So we talked about where you learned and the barley that you use and the type of still, and we've looked at the still. By the way, you mentioned Maris Otter. As far as I know, Maris Otter is not even used in Scotland anymore because of the GN concern.
Yes,
which I think is overblown. Like let's just get that on the table. But like it's not nothing. So what do you think about that?
So there's a couple parts with Maris Otter that can happen. Is that it can have a higher rate of having like methanol in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not as clean. So also my biggest beef with Maris Otter is it doesn't convert well. So when you're converting your like alpha and beta amylases, it does not get as much on the beta amylases as you should. So you're losing efficiency, and it doesn't have the same kind of like roundness of flavor. So having a science background, I try to look at everything from like the 1,000-foot level, the 10,000-foot level, and then the like 1-foot level.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it just doesn't have the flavor, which is the 1-foot level. So I don't really think the concern for the, 1,000 and 10,000-foot view of it matter to me. And I also feel like everybody has a different risk tolerance when it comes to things. And then, as a Scottish distillery where you're going to have to guess 15, 20 years into the future of how people are going to feel about something, and if you see something negative that could potentially really harm your business 15, 20 years down the future, I get why it has been removed, because it's not worth the gamble, you know what I mean, as a business owner. So I think I would leave out I want to say like whether it's well-defined science or not of people's take on that. It more to me comes down to a flavor profile and then the future of your business. If you don't think there's stability in it, because it may have a negative perception, or it may negative, have negative consequences occur because of it, or there's environmental issues with it, or just simply it doesn't grow well, or anything else that goes with that, not worth it. When there's better grains. I mean, Laureate and Concerto, Diablo, they've got a couple new ones that I've seen. I haven't had samples of them yet, so I can't really speak too much on them. We tend to buy from one of the two major malting houses, and I've stuck with them just because they're good business partners and I like them. So,
and when you say the major malting houses, I don't know if anyone's ever actually said who they are on air.
Oh, Simpson and Crisp. So there's two in the UK. It's Simpson and Crisp. There are other ones.
So from the UK.
Yeah, only from the UK. So we only buy barley out of the UK. So we buy spring barley from the UK, which is what they use in Scotch making, and it's malted in the Scotch style. So there's Simpson and there's Crisp.
Okay, cool.
So if you ever look at our bags, they say Simpson on them. And I have no problem sharing that. Like, we're pretty transparent on what we do. Like, if you want to come out, take pictures and post them, you can probably see them on our Instagram stories or on Instagram in general. It's, it's more in the technique and kind of how you do things. The base ingredients are generically going to be all the same. I mean, the barley that almost all Scotch making uses, and a lot of the, like, I don't know too much about what the other single malt places do, but in the end, it's all the same thing. So it's kind of how you put it together that matters.
Yep. And flavor matters more than anything at the end of the day.
Yeah. And, and then you kind of have to think of it from a business sense. For us, as the grain we're using converts very well, we get a really good efficiency and yield. So that matters too, because you don't want to waste money.
Yep.
As a small business, that you're always nickeling and diming. How can you save, $100 here, $100 there? It matters in the end to us. So.
Yep. So you mentioned getting samples of barley's new
Mhm.
varieties that might come out. How do you evaluate whether a barley is going to work in your setup? Do you just do a distillation run and see what happens? Do you go all the way through aging it as an experiment, or?
No, well, there's a couple ways we do it. Truthfully, you can taste the barley. Like,
Mhm.
if you eat malted barley, there's a huge variation in what you can taste. Because you can actually almost tell whether at this point, I'm doing it long enough, whether the crops, they harvest them at a certain, parameters with the right amount of moisture and, everything being necessary. But, they all taste differently. So we've gotten other, like, personally, I think Golden Promise is gross. Like, if you just buy a sample of it from like a brewer's place and chew it, it does not taste good. Which
Mm.
to me translates isn't going to taste good. Like, now we've done it. We used to have a small still, and we would just do a small run. But at this point, I trust my palate enough and Nick's palate enough that I think we can chew on some barley and say, hey, this is what it's going to taste like in the end.
Hmm.
And then when you get samples like that, the company sends you out all the like specs on them of what, everything is in them, what all the technical things are, so if you're going to get a good conversion.
Right. So things like the convertible starch, the diastatic
Mhm.
power,
Yeah.
all the things you need to know how much alcohol you're going to be able to get out of it.
Yeah, and even then, you're going to have some variations in like how you mill it, how you cook it. If something takes 5 minutes longer by any chance because somebody had to run out and get a shipment of, pallets being brought in or whatever it is, you always get those small variations that
Mhm.
I think is fun about being a craft place. It's like every bottling we have is different. Every bottle isn't actually a different color because they come from different barrels. So like if I pulled
Oh,
out a
the
bunch of
liquid in
them,
the bottle, you mean?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, this one that I have is probably a little more yellowy, golden, and the one you have is clearly lighter. So they're all,
Yeah. I mean, like on the camera, it almost looks like to have a twinge of green, like pale green to
yeah.
it, which I guess
So
can happen, but I think that might just be a trick of the light.
it's probably a little bit of a trick of the light, but one of the things is with Sauterne casks, because they're French oak, they do not give off a lot of color.
Mhm.
So, and then usually when we're pairing the Sauternes, we start everything in a bourbon barrel. So we'll use something lighter, like a Woodford Reserve or an Old Fitzgerald. Those just simply pair better with the Sauterne finish, and they're not as charred. So they're usually level 4 char instead of a level 5 char. And that level 4 is like, I forget the seconds on them. I've looked this up, but it's on the lowest end of what they'll char.
Mhm.
So you're just not going to get a lot of color. And those we don't usually let sit in bourbon very long because you do get the good nice oak from the French oak Sauterne cask. So no need to pick up too much of the bourbon. But that's kind of Nick does a lot of the transferring around, but that's a lot of where the color comes from. It's just simply from the barrel.
Yeah. So, okay, between us, we
Mhm.
talked about this in the pre-show. We have one example of the Oloroso finished Swift,
Yes.
and we have actually two different batches distilled 3 months apart of the Sauterne cask finished
Yeah.
Swift. Between us, we didn't find any that don't have a barrel finish. Do you release like unfinished whiskey?
No.
That unfinished is a bad word for that. Whiskey that hasn't been in a finishing cask.
No, everything we have is finished in a wine cask or some kind of finishing cask. So everything for us starts in bourbon barrels and then we'll finish in. We've thought about playing with doing like a double bourbon where you get something like, like start in a Woodford where it's kind of a little bit lighter and then finish in maybe like an Old Forester but it never exactly has materialized of something we like. Like we've got a Chardonnay finish we're doing, we've got a Madeira finish we're doing, we've got a few other things. Nick wants Mizunara cask, but I'm dying at $5,000 a barrel.
Yeah.
That's our current
Stephanie
argument.
McLeod, when they talked about the Dewar's 8-year Mizunara smooth, Japanese smooth.
Yeah.
What I think, I can't remember who was doing that interview. It might have been Whiskey Cast, talking about how do you hit that? What is it? The Dewar's is like $25 a bottle or something, right, Phil? Like, how do you hit that price point when you've got such crazy expensive barrels? And the only reason it works for Dewar's is just scale. The fact they're planning on using those barrels again for something else.
And I think that she specifically said that on that singular expression, they're not making money, but because of their scale, they can afford to do that on a relatively small run. That's just not possible for a small distillery.
No, I mean, I could probably eat the cost for doing a few of them to keep it reasonably priced, but Mizunara is also hard too because it's leaky. Like it just leaks. So, and they're not easy to store or work with or any of the rest of it. So that's my husband for you. He likes the difficult. So he puts up with me. We've been together 22 years, I think. Something like we should know this. We don't. This is what happens. You hit like 10 years and you're like, whatever. We're not like, we always joke we never have our wedding rings on or anything else. We've almost stopped with our wedding anniversary. We just celebrate our like when we started dating anniversary because we can remember that.
Yep.
Yeah. We've hit that
point.
Yeah,
that's a really good point. I think I mean our wedding was great, but my wife and I actually kind of make a bigger deal about celebrating our dating anniversary than about celebrating our wedding anniversary.
Ours is July 4th, so it's just easy to remember.
Yeah, ours is a week before Valentine's Day.
Yeah, there you go. So that's
it's easier to remember.
We picked a wedding date specifically so it'd be easy to remember. So we were married on 8/7/06, but we don't remember it.
That's really funny.
So that tells you a lot about it. Like Nick and I are actually very easygoing people, so it's not one of those like we're picky on those type things.
I mean, what's the old joke? If you've been married long enough that neither of you can remember your anniversary, you're in good shape.
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of how it goes.
You just have to forget at the same time. That's the trick.
Yeah. We also like work together too. So there's like a whole, we spend a lot of time together. We like each other. It's a good thing we like each other. Wouldn't work working together if we didn't. Yep. So it's always fun, I guess.
Is part of the reason for not wearing wedding rings in the distillery just that it's a safety hazard? Because I would imagine that would. I take my ring off all the time. Actually, this isn't even my wedding ring. This is it's a health tracker ring that I wear on my wedding finger. And I take this off anytime I'm exercising, lifting anything, because I don't want to like get my finger caught or damage the ring. So I'm just even when I wash my hands, I take it off because I don't like the wrinkly skin that you get underneath a wet ring.
I worked in a lab when I started and I worked with fire ants. So you usually had on gloves. I did like molecular kind of work and you're always in gloves. So you couldn't wear a ring. And, once we started this, you're working with your hands, you wash your hands 1,000 times a day. I've definitely broken a few fingers, it's just not worth it. It's kind of a risk. And then once you don't put it on, you just never we kind of jokingly will put them on once every 3 months.
Yeah, you got to put them on when you go out, right?
Yeah, even then I don't think we do most of the time. It never occurs to me to grab it anymore. It's like in a jewelry box in the closet. So
fair enough. Okay, so back to the whiskey.
Yeah, back to the whiskey.
So we talked about the color a bit, and I just want to address the elephant in the room because I know if we were doing this live, there would be questions, and a lot of people know Swift whiskey is very young.
Yeah.
It's released at, I mean, it doesn't even say, but it can't be older than 2 years because this was distilled in early 2023. But if I am correct, I believe it's like somewhere between 12 and 15 months old.
Probably. They all
Yeah.
kind of have different ages. What happened is we got everything to about 3 years old. COVID hit. Everybody was buying everything from us, and we were like, "Oh crap, let's sell it because who knows what's going to happen." Everything then ended up about, yeah, that 12 to 15 months old, and we've been trying desperately for the last year and a half to hold it back so we get closer to that 3 years again. So most of the stuff
Hmm.
that will be coming out, like in the following months, will be closer to 3 years old. But the Texas heat is very helpful for aging. It is hot and humid. So, like the Japanese have done a ton of research on how barrels swell, how barrels age. So, we keep it purposely warm and humid. Now, we don't let it swing, wildly crazy or anything. But at night, we cool it down to like 68 in the building with air conditioning units. We've got 20 plus tons of AC, and we're buying more chilling capacity here shortly.
Hmm.
And then we let it, it'll warm up during the day in the 80s. And if we're distilling, it's just inherently hot and humid. So, and we're in that point where we're about to start, cross my fingers, all the legal stuff goes correct, because you never know with like when you're trying to build out a proper storage, so we can keep that temperature and humidity a little more. We're building on to the place we're at, basically, given we meet all the permits parameters and the person with the septic tank doesn't have a fight with us. Gotta
Right.
love that. Owning a business is you're always just in some state of chaos and nothing is ever like completely finished through. But yeah, we're young. And I think that fits with what we're doing. Like, I don't think it makes sense for us to age, 8, 10, 12 years. I think the lighter, the smoother, kind of that easy drinking product, I always kind of call us velvety. Like, that's kind of the phrase I go with for what we're, kind of our goal of when you drink it. It doesn't make sense to be older for us.
Yeah. I having tasted it and spent some time with it, I totally agree. And I have no opinions from a friend and a family member. I want to hear from Phil, because Phil, you've gotten to spend some time
Yeah.
with the Oloroso.
Yes. I have to say it is, of the three that I've tried, it is my favorite. And to be fair, that is just two of the Sauternes and this Oloroso.
Mhm.
I find it to be a very rich, even at that proof, and full mouth feel. And I think that it benefits from that lightness of uh the base malt, and then
Mhm.
Oloroso kind of adds just a little bit of depth and warmth.
I'm trying to think of what this one reminds me of. This is my first taste of the Oloroso. You saw me open the seal in our pre-show,
Yeah.
so I get a little bit nutty for sure, a little bit
Mhm.
of like praline candy, and like Smarties, like the Smarties candy sugar.
I always think like peach crumble, but maybe that's my southerner coming out at
Yeah,
me.
I think that's one of those things where it's like I said Smarties, you said peach crumble. We're tasting the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in that ballpark.
My daughter loves Smarties, so we eat a lot of them. I like to pair candy with whiskey. I'm one of those people. You know those like nerd gummy clusters?
Hmm.
Hmm.
The red ones with the Olorosa. 10 out of 10
Okay.
for a snack for me. And then Sour Patch Kids with the Sauterne.
Okay. I could see that. Oh, I could see
Yeah.
that for sure. Yeah. I have recently been telling more people about this. I think it's just a kick that I'm on, that my hot take with whiskey is that whiskey usually doesn't pair particularly well with like a constructed meal, the way that you would do a wine
Yes.
pairing.
Yeah.
I think either the whiskey is too complex, it takes away from the food, or the food is too powerful, it takes away from the whiskey. So with food, I'm looking for a whiskey that I'd like to put in a cocktail, because that makes the
Mhm.
whiskey no longer compete with the food. It lets you treat the
Yeah.
whiskey as an ingredient that elevates the meal. And if you balance it out appropriately and then you pair all of those ingredients together, it's a lot easier to construct a cocktail that fits your meal than it is to find the perfect whiskey that exactly matches the thing that you cooked.
I always believe whiskey. This is why I say this with ours. Is the Olorosa is a before dinner drink, and the
Mhm.
Sauterne is an after dinner drink, and then cocktails with your food. Like I make a lot of cocktails when I'm doing like whiskey tasting or whiskey pairing because I think people think, oh, I shouldn't mix it, but again, I think you should. Like you know, for me, I love to cook. I love food, and I'm in a full agreement. Like if you're drinking whiskey straight with dinner, it's competing or you're not getting the full experience. But if you do it in a cocktail where it's like, I want to say you dull down some of the flavors and then you elevate some of the other ones, it usually pairs well. Like I love a daiquiri, like made with
Hmm.
whiskey.
Hmm.
That's
Okay.
probably one of my, yeah, this goes back to my love of yellow chartreuse, but and I like lime bitters with like, yellow chartreuse is kind of that
Hmm.
backbone to the daiquiri, and then your standard, simple syrup, Swift, shake it on ice.
There's something about the Sauterne one that I think would work really well for that. I think just
Mhm.
as a cocktailing whiskey, like this is
Yeah.
perfect. Like this I think stands in really well for a light Japanese whiskey like Toki.
Hmm.
I really like it with soda. I like it on the rocks. I like it neat too, but it's the sort of thing that begs to be put in something.
Oh,
Um,
I fully agree. Like,
yeah.
I don't typically use the Olorosa in cocktails because I think that one just doesn't have the same. Like I make margaritas all the time, actually paired with Sour Patch Kids as your garnish, with the
Mhm.
Sauterne because it's just fun and people don't think of it. And who doesn't love a margarita?
Yep. So I would call the thing like the putting it on the rocks is not a highball, but like the whiskey and
Yeah.
soda, I think of as a cocktail, even though a highball maybe is not considered a cocktail. But you said you don't like to use the Sauterne in, I guess, more complicated cocktails.
Yeah, I like the Sauterne in the complicated cocktails because I think it actually
Oh, you
holds
do?
up.
It's the
Yeah,
other way around.
yeah, I don't use the Olorosa very often in a
Oh,
cocktail.
okay.
I
Got it.
mean, maybe for like an old fashioned because I do think it pairs well with like orange. Although I
Okay.
kind of don't love a standard old fashioned. I like them weird.
Do you like the Wisconsin old fashioned?
I'll try all of them, and yeah, as long as the only spirit that I think is just truly like horrendous is what is it, Malort or whatever that
Oh,
is out of Chicago. Somebody gave me that a long time ago, and I was like, why? And I like all kinds of weird things too. Like I actually had Jaeger for the first time not that long ago. I weirdly liked it. So
Similar kind of thing.
I think Malort really ought to be sold in a bitter size bottle with a little bitters dropper.
Mhm.
yeah, that would make sense for me with that. But when I tried it, I was just like, oh, I don't know what I was expecting because they served it like as it should be sipped, and it should not, in my opinion. But
Right.
I'm gonna make everybody in Chicago mad because I know that's like a Chicago thing, but
I don't know. I've had a shot of Malort. It wasn't in Chicago, so I didn't have anybody to make mad.
that's
Um,
good.
but I think the best take I've seen, it wasn't that bad, is the thing. It has some flavors. A lot of people say it's like pukey, but it wasn't like that for me.
No,
It's just, it has an interesting,
Rubber pencil
um,
eraser and graphite shavings is like the two things that really jump out at me, and that's
maybe I need to go sip it at some point, but for me, it was like a little bit nutty, grassy, and then it does have a long bitter finish, but not like uh bittersweet aperitivo,
yeah,
the one from Wilderton, or even like a Campari or whatever, has a longer, harsher bitter finish.
it doesn't.
So,
It's one of those that like it doesn't pair right for me. It's like you taste
yeah.
one thing and it finishes wrong. I don't know if
Yep.
that makes sense. I have
Yeah,
that
yeah.
happen sometimes.
That's
Like
true for sure. Yeah.
wine does that to me occasionally, where it's like it starts one way and then it doesn't finish the way I think it should, and it
Hmm.
confuses me. Like Pinot Grigios always have that. Like they'll start like something and then they finish some other way, or some of those I love like a good French Burgundy, but every so often I find one where it's got this beautiful up front and then the back end doesn't match to me, and then I get annoyed. This might just might be my personal problem,
Yeah,
but
you know, now that you mention it, Pinot Grigio is not a wine that resonates with me, and I never really thought about why. I don't get that critical of wine. I'm just like,
Yeah.
well, I guess I don't like that kind of wine. I like Tempranillo. I like Syrah.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't know. There's not a lot of whites that I would say. I like Riesling, but
Yeah.
that's a sweet wine kind of. So it's a different kind of thing. Ice wine is great. Ice wine's
Mhm.
very sweet. I guess I like sweet wine.
I like a Vouvray too. Those in the sweet category, but yeah.
Right, and they make that into ice wine as well, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know my wines all that well.
Oh, neither do I. No, we're talking out of school. So back on the topic of cocktails,
Yes.
specifically the I think it's November 2022, right? Phil's batch of the Sauternes cask
Mhm.
has an interesting grassy, peppery note to it that reminds me of an agave spirit, and I really could see this working as a substitute for in something like a margarita.
Mhm. I think the Sauterne is fun for that because I feel like each different expression that we've done of that, there's just subtle variations because those Sauterne casks, even though they're coming from the exact same place, year to year, they're just different and they pick up really interesting things. So some have more of those tropical fruit notes, some have more of that grassy note, and I think that's with you're getting the variation of the grapes because Sauterne to me is such an elegant wine with such a unique like history and everything with it, and it's such a beautiful flavor profile that when it goes through the whiskey, you pick up really interesting things with it. And kind of the longer time they sit in there or the less time they sit in there, you get different kind of highlights of what is there and what is not there.
Yeah,
Sauterne's my favorite. You couldn't tell that by my gushing love of it.
Yeah. I love the wine too. It's
Me
one of those
too.
things. I discovered Sauternes through whiskey. I think probably a lot of people did. I think it's a beautiful wine, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. Usually they come in smaller bottles. So
Yeah.
if you're getting a smaller bottle, you don't have to spend a lot of money to get a pretty good Sauterne. And the same is true of sherry. I kind of discovered sherry through whiskey and
Mhm.
learned that I actually really like sherry. But with sherry, there's the gotcha that before I cared about in quotes sherry.
Sure, you're fine. Hold on, my daughter. Can I tell my daughter something real quick? Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, kiddo. Sorry, that's the joy of children. Sometimes they enjoy interrupting you. Whoop.
Yeah.
I'm shaking the table.
Totally fine.
Back to your
what was I saying? Oh yeah, about sherry. So
oh no, sherry.
With sherry, a lot of times like you'll go into the store and you'll buy a sherry, right? And before I quote cared about sherry, the kind of sherry that we would get for cooking or whatever would be like Fairbanks, which is actually made in California, so it's not sherry.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, oh, this isn't very good. I can see why people don't drink this anymore. I actually think that like the American made sherry really did have a negative impact on the sherry. This is not supported by any evidence whatsoever, but I wouldn't be surprised if American made sherry is one of the reasons that sherry's been in decline, because people just think of sherry as being this like flat, kind of sweet, just, like a thing that you only cook with, not something that you enjoy really drinking. Phil, you look like you have a comment.
Oh, I was going to say, sort of the perceived wisdom that I always had was, there's drinking sherry and cooking sherry, and you can't get anything but cooking sherry around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is wisdom from my grandmother, so who knows how accurate that remains.
I think that's still basically true.
Get good sherry, you just have to work hard at finding it. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I think Osborne or some of those, Sandeman that are more prevalent, you can find places, they have good variations. Like, I like an Amontillado for sherry if I'm going to have a sherry. And I think you can find decent ones. You have to work at it though.
So I live in a little spitting distance from the District of Columbia. Before we had a representative of Lustau on to talk about sherry with us, I called around to 3 or 4 high-end wine shops, and none of them had any sherry because they don't sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when we were prepping for that episode, I basically had to go all over town to find what I wanted for that episode was for you, me, and Ian, because we had Ian as a co-host back then also. I wanted all of us to have an example of every major type of sherry, which was a project, because you've got the
Oh yeah.
Fino, the Amontillado, the Palo Cortado, the Manzanilla, the Oloroso, the Cream, the PX. They've got some fun variations on those. The Palo Cortado, I don't remember if I mentioned. And then there's the Muscatel, which is, if anything, everybody like stops at PX and forgets that Muscatel is also a type of sherry.
Yeah.
And I finally got all 8 or 9 of these types of sherries together and sent samples to them so that we could all have the same sort of thing to taste and actually go explore sherry in the side-by-side format that we like as whiskey nerds. It was a great episode. We'll put a link to it in the description since we've talked enough about sherry now. Anybody in the audience who hasn't watched that, you should. I think it's probably one of our more fun episodes.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the fun of whiskey, though, is like you take those side journeys. Like we spent a lot of time in Sauternes picking out the casks we wanted. So we tried most of the places in Sauternes. There's not that many, it's a small region. And to me, that was probably one of the most fun parts of it is getting to try and getting a true education in it. Like I would love to go to Spain and get a really good education in sherry, although
Mm.
I'm dying to learn about sake next. That's on my
Mm.
like bucket list of
I don't know if
some of
anyone's
the
done
spirit.
sake cask whiskey.
I imagine not.
They don't really do casks.
Yeah, as I said, I don't think I've been to Japan and I've definitely had like good sake, but it's one of those things I know very little on to be an educated. I know what I like in the taste profile, but I know very
Mhm.
little on the outside of the basics of it for making it. So
So do you have an ongoing relationship with the places in Sauternes that provide the barrels, or did you
yeah.
pick out all of them and they're just gradually sending them over?
Oh no, we have an ongoing relationship with them. We've had a pretty decent relationship with most of the places we've worked with over the years. I use like a barrel broker out of Kentucky. We used to use Four Roses barrels before they were bought by Beam Suntory, but now they're impossible to get because I did
Hmm.
always love the Four Roses
Right.
barrels. But
Because I guess Suntory probably wants to take the ex-bourbon casks and send them off to age Yamazaki in or something.
yep, that's pretty much where they all go. Or they end up in like
Scotland.
Scotland. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the difficulties that I've heard of, is that it's getting harder and harder to get bourbon barrels because the spirits trades across the world, not just in the US, are having more and more desire for ex-bourbon barrels. And for small single malt producers where you are wanting to potentially initially age in ex-bourbon barrels, if you don't already also produce bourbon barrels, that is an expense.
Yeah, so barrels for us are probably like our biggest expense. So when we started, we could buy bourbon barrels for maybe $85, $75. Now you're lucky if you get them below 147, like 145. That's pretty. And now like our Olarosa casks, those are, $800, $900. Sauternes are probably $400 or $500. Some of the other ones we've tried out, like Madeira casks, were outrageously expensive, probably $1,200. But you're also considering they're coming from overseas. So I think a lot of times in this industry, it's about building a good relationship. And I've been lucky enough, I've had 13 years to build good relationships. So even when, they're saying they're going to send a whole container and I'm not going to get anything, I will still end up with, the 6 or 10 barrels I need. Like I don't have too large of a problem yet, but I think that comes down to Nick and I have a philosophy. It's called "Don't be an asshole to people."
Mm-hmm.
That's how we try to live our lives. Now, snark and sarcasm are my main forms of communication, so sometimes people can take me wrong. But in business, I think it's about building those relationships up and having good partners that you can work with. And as time has gone on, we have those relationships. I'm not as young as some of the other distilleries, and I'm not I don't, a lot of them have a large amount of turnover and things, and I think it makes it a little more difficult to handle, especially as people have taken on investors and the rest of it. So relationship building helps.
Yep. That reminds me, and this might be an interesting direction to go down. Phil, I'm going to ask you to start thinking about excuse me, start thinking about tasting notes for your Sauterne cask, because that's sort of next up on the docket. I've given a few tasting notes already. What was I distracted myself by nearly having a coughing fit.
I know.
What was I saying?
We're going to go off in an interesting direction.
And I forget what interesting direction that was. I was so excited about it.
It'll come back.
Hey, let's do the tasting notes.
Yeah. What do you think it tastes like?
So on the 11/8/22, I get like a big burst of florality. Makes me think of like walking through a garden center where they've got all the perennials and annuals on either side, and you get that like big burst of, that bright floral note, and then that little bit of like lingering like cut vegetation smell, and there's a little bit of citrus and some like sort of bitter grape skin around the edges that keeps it from being too sweet. What do you think?
I quite like this one. There's a lot of complexity in there that you outlined. You're much better at doing this verbally than I am, which I'm realizing the more often we do this.
Yeah.
The tasting notes you say verbally are the kinds of things I spend an hour thinking about and then write down.
I have practice.
You do. So do I, or so I thought. Yeah, like I said, in addition to all those sorts of things, I keep forgetting to break down the high notes and the low notes, but I also get that sort of peppery edge on this one.
Yeah.
And that to me is like the standout factor that makes this one really interesting. And I am pleased that it worked out this way, that we have these two different expressions of the same
Yeah,
product.
I like that. I try to get people to have different like bottling dates, so it makes it fun. Hold on one second, my kid needs some
Yeah, no
pills.
problem.
Yep.
We're at this parenting hour.
And we can both start
You'll
thinking about the
understand
next
this shortly once you have your own kid. You're never ending doing something that mom has to do that dad can't do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is there a default parent?
Yeah. No. Well, the first
They go to you equally.
The first like 3 years of our daughter's life, it was nothing but mom do this, and now it's like dad take me to the park, dad take me to do this. But then as like bedtime nears, it's like mom, I need something, I'm dying. Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
So that did actually remind me the direction that I was going to take this. So we've got two different products, two different release dates, two different distillation dates, two different expressions of the same. How do we put this? We have one product with two different dates on it, right? Two different batches of the same product. That's what I'm going for. And it shows the batch variation that can just happen naturally, even within a short period of time, a short season of aging. So if you were going to look at your distillery back 10 years ago, or however long ago you started, I can't remember if you mentioned it. I forgot if I looked it up.
13 years. I think we started distilling 12 years ago. There was a year of legalities of equipment and setting up.
Right. So if you go back a decade, there's no liquid in common between the releases you were releasing a decade ago, approximately, and what we have in hand today.
They're all made under the same like conditions. So we've been using the same general like spring barley's varietals. We've changed them slightly over the years, but they've been pretty consistent. The same, like the bourbon barrels have changed. Like in the earlier days, they were Four Roses. In the more recent times, they're like Woodford, Old Forester, Old Fitzgerald. There's some Heaven Hill ones thrown in there. We've had a few others. I forget what all we've tried. But the Sauterne casks all come from the same place. Now the Olorosa cask, we've tried a few different Olorosa producers, all out of Jerez, Spain. But I think there's commonality to all of the like expressions. So all of the Olorosa finishes will be similar, but there's slight variations. So for us, we're not really exactly like single barrel, single bottling kind of thing, but it's pretty close. So what usually happens is we make one mash, which goes into like one final distillation, which then goes into one bourbon barrel. And then that bourbon barrel transfers either to like an Olorosa cask or a Sauterne cask. And then that's bottled. So it's not truly like a single barrel because it's moved to barrels. But in that, you get all the different subtle variations of time. So like our process really hasn't changed, like the temperature of the water, the base of the barley, but you know, whether you're distilling in a cold temperature or hot temperature, you know, those things vary. If the, like we have like 600,000 BTU burners that sit under the still. So say you have it turned up just slightly higher because it's cooler, you know, or if it's slightly lower because it's hotter out, you get those variations. I think that's fun. Like, I know people want, if you know, I think I was thinking of kind of like the Johnny Walker, while their master blender is absolutely brilliant that they can make those things all taste the same. And I get why people want that. But for me, like the subtle variations make it more interesting.
Yeah,
Because again, I'm a
definitely
craft
agree.
product. You
Yeah.
know, it's like I enjoy, I think of it somewhat as like an art form. You know, it's like Nick is truly the artist of us. I have no artistic talent whatsoever. But that comes out, you know, it's like even if you bake a chocolate chip cookie 1,000 times from the exact same recipe, something ever so slightly would be different. You know, if the cows ate sweeter grass and you know, the butter tastes different, those kind of things. It's fun. It makes it interesting. And that's why we do the dates actually, because it kind of shows you all the, we try to think about it. Do we want to put age statements or do we want to put dates? And we stuck with the dates because that shows you like the progression of time. You know, something distilled in January is definitely going to taste different than distilled in June or July, because the way that the aging goes, and you only have so many summers it's going to go through like that level of heat. Even as we do our best to temperature control, you just can't control those variables. And all those things make a difference in the final product. Which is somewhat, I think it's more interesting in single malt than something like bourbon, where like that corn is very robust and sweet, or you don't pick up those subtle variations as much because corn is more of a, I want to say, an overpowering flavor than something like barley, which is that malt is just simply more delicate in the end.
Well, and also in bourbon, it's so often their end goal is as much oak influence as possible, or so it seems. They may not say that, but when you have things that are, 7-year age statement that is, darker
Looked like
than
it came out of a
sweet
wet sherry
tea.
cask.
Yeah.
When they tell you it doesn't have E150A in it, but it does, and stick it under a UV nail light, and you'll see the real color. If you guys want a fun science experiment,
Yeah.
go buy your UV, like nail lights, pop your bourbon bottles under it for a good 45 minutes, just keep it in it. The E150A will lose its color and you'll see the real color of your bottles. Because even if it does say straight or whatever the thing is, if you truly read the TTB rules, you can get around it.
Interesting. I just spent some time a couple days ago explaining to people that for the most part you could trust straight to not have color added.
Oh no, you cannot.
Oh,
Okay,
man.
go in your local liquor store when they have the alcohols in, like if you have any of them where they have whiskey in the window, like where the shelf has a window lining it, look at the back bottle. Look how much lighter it will be than the front bottle. There is no way. Okay, here's a fun one. Try to find pictures of things like Jack Daniels from, say, the 80s before they got into putting E150A and stuff, because people used to not care, right?
Right.
So, like, go raid your grandpa's liquor cabinet and try to find the thing furthest in the back that no one has had in a long time that could possibly be a lot older. Or literally pop it under a UV, like, nail light. You'll see that color disappear pretty quick. It's fun.
And that doesn't happen with just color that comes from barrels?
Nope.
Interesting.
Yep,
I'm going to have to ask you
E150A
more about the science of that.
Yeah, E150A, which is caramel coloring. There's E150A, B, and C, but all will degrade in light. So any of your bottles, so like Scotch, which obviously they have used color for however long and they
Mhm.
never try to hide that they do it, which I don't see anything. I mean, if you want to use color, great. If you don't want to use it, great. Don't lie about it.
Right.
That's just my take
Yeah.
on it. So if Scotch comes in a tube, a darkened tube, or the bottles are
Mhm.
often darker for that reason because it will degrade in light. So go take any, and it won't change the flavor. Like if you lose the color,
Yeah.
doesn't have any effect on it. But go stick your bottles in the window for a good 6 weeks, and you'll see the color come out. It's really fun, and you can put your nicest straight bourbon in there, and I guarantee you it will happen.
Hmm. I'm also thinking about, because I've got a bunch of bottles from Lost Lantern who I know don't do caramel coloring because
Mhm.
it's just not in their ethos, and they
Yeah,
have some pretty remarkably dark stuff. Granted,
you
that's from like Missouri and you know parts south, and it's 7-8 year old bourbons and ryes.
you can get with like the smaller bottle or barrel sizes, which
Mhm.
is what a lot of them do, or but it like think about I've got a 100-year-old bottle of cognac that's in a
Mhm.
new oak barrels. It is nowhere near as dark. The
Mhm.
cognac I have is probably no darker than like what this is.
Mhm.
So while they may say they do not use caramel color, they may very well use one of the other additives. It's really common in our industry and everybody hides it, but it's one of those things that just drives me up the wall because anytime you see them with that reddish tint, which you will not get from a barrel no matter what they
Mhm.
tell you, when you see that red, you know it's got the E150 A, B, or C in it.
Interesting.
We've got some science reading to do. I feel like
Yeah,
I could deep dive on that, and I'm going to be in your emails about this.
deep dive on it. It's one of those topics I absolutely love, and I hate that people like this breaks my heart for distilleries. Like, I hate this that people think that darker equals better or darker means something,
Yep.
right?
You're
And
you're preaching to the choir here. We know that color has no bearing on flavor.
but they feel they have to do it, and I hate that because I honestly think like the full variation of color you're gonna get is a whole lot more interesting. Like
Hmm.
one of the tests that we do often when we're testing like kind of new ideas or whatever is we take our new make and we'll saw off little chunks of barrel staves and then soak them in like say an amontillado or whatever it is. We buy the barrel of like, but then you test it in like a little sample. So you tie fishing wire in a little mason jar and you hold it there. And that is about the most ratio you can get of oak to whatever, and you cannot usually get them anywhere near as dark or as red colored as you'll see. Like even if you threw something
Hmm.
like Boys A chips in it, which are like the French oaked kind of things that you can use for, we sometimes will do it for like flavor approximations when we're doing testing. Again, you're not going to get up that color. So,
Yeah, that's the wood flavored
mhm.
like derivative that you can add to cognac, right?
Yeah. So they must make about 50 different kinds of it. They sell them in these little tiny sample bags you can buy.
Hmm.
And so sometimes if we're testing like different wine finishes or whatever else, we'll take little samples and we'll try the Boys A chips in them where they're the closest approximation to what that cask might taste like. So you're not wasting a like a
Mhm.
full barrel trying something you might not like. It's a pretty good like I want to say testing or scientific tool that we've used over the years.
Yeah, I for the most part have trusted other people's science experiments along these lines, but at the end of the day, my conclusion is it doesn't really matter what the color is. You just need to
Yeah.
look at the flavor. That's what matters. On the other hand, I mean, I have a bias towards liking pale colored whiskey, and I think it's
Yeah.
beautiful. Just, I mean, any other color of whiskey is also beautiful, but like looking at the whiskey is part of it. As
Yeah.
pretentious as that sounds, it is definitely part of the experience, and some people value that more than others.
Yeah, and it's one of those things it's like I wish as an industry people wouldn't feel the need that they have to do that. And I feel like that's, you know, over the years I've talked to a variety of people in our industry where they'll say like, yeah, we do it because XYZ. Like, if you're in industry and like you own a distiller to distiller, people will tell you things you think, you know, they say it and And I hate it. I hate that they feel they have to hide something they've worked so hard on that is usually such a good product to cave to this. I want to say Karen's on the internet. That people are going to trash your product because it is not the right color. And that just
Mhm.
ticks me off, I guess. Like, that's my
Yeah.
rant on this, because it's not fair to the distillers who've worked very hard on something, the distilleries, the blenders, everything else, that then they have to cave to this pressure to make it look a certain way. I don't know. There's probably more to my psyche on that that needs to
Uh,
be thought about, but
Let's take this one step further. Do you think that the addition of E150A or similar has a noticeable flavor impact?
no, it doesn't. We've tried it. I own E150A because I wanted to know, like, that's how I know the UV nail light thing works. Is that I sat down and I was really curious because I know, like, is Scotch making, it's very common. The Japanese obviously don't use it at all because you can see how light a lot of their whiskeys are. And I wanted to know, so I bought a sample of it and I put it in ours. I taste tested it blind. Nick's done it. We've done it with people. We have people come out and I actually, will put it in our whiskey and then show them you can't taste it. It's just a color perception thing. Now, I think maybe E150C, which is, I think, the cheapest quality of it, that one to me, I think you can taste. I don't think many people use it because it's very yellow in color, and I think it was more used in beer making, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken, to like hide some of the, I think hops kind of occasionally have that green color, and so they used it to, I could be wrong, don't hold me to that because I'm not a beer maker, but I think that was the original application for it. But that one I do think you can't taste. Not A or B though.
Hmm.
So I can
Maybe I
send you
need
a
to
sample of it
go.
if you want it.
Yeah, maybe I need to go just buy myself some samples of these because,
You can. I can.
worst case, I have like cake coloring or something.
Yeah.
Make my cake the color of a barrel.
Yeah. I mean, and you can mix it in water too, and you can kind of taste it. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
toxic. It's not going to harm you any. It's what
yeah,
they're
yeah.
using in
Mhm.
Coca-Cola. But
Yeah. I mean, well, I wasn't planning on just putting a drop on my tongue, but if I can't taste it in the water, maybe I should try just putting a drop on my tongue and seeing what happens.
I mean, I did it. Your tongue is going to turn a funny
Yeah,
color, but
it was stuck like that for a while.
it it generally came out pretty quick. It was one of those things I was interested in because Scotch does it, and I thought Nick and I considered it. Like, is it something worth doing? And we just said we don't care. Like, it's not. We've had a lot of, I love bad internet reviews. They're my favorite. I love people that tell me I'm the worst bourbon you've ever had. It's my
Yeah,
favorite of all
bourbon.
time. I'm the
Wait a
worst
minute.
bourbon. Yes, please. I love it. So that's my take on it. But to me, it makes me sad for an industry that it has to do something because they've caved to what the public like. And I think it's just a few vocal people that scream to the, high heavens is how most things are. And I think that's sad.
So, as long as we're talking about pet peeves on things people do because they think they're expected to, how do you feel about chill filtration?
Um, I think chill filtration has a purpose. Again, we don't do it because I we tried. Again, we've tried everything. I have no I think that one comes down to a flavor consideration because it definitely strips the flavor out, right?
Hmm.
And
I have a hard time taking anyone seriously who says that stripping fats out of whiskey is somehow not going to change the flavor.
'Cause what do you think the flavors
Yeah,
are bound
yeah,
to?
there are
it's like
fat soluble flavors, and you're taking the fats out. So where do you think those
I
flavors
mean,
are?
I spend a lot of time in my ester consideration of what we're, getting out, the fatty alcohols and all the rest of it. So I would not think stripping it out would be a good idea. But it clouds, which I
Hmm.
get looks off-putting. But I'm in Texas. It's always fucking hot. So,
Hmm.
who cares? For
Yeah.
all you nice people that live where it's cold, bless you. I love you. I wish I had your climate occasionally until it snows, and I think that's terrible. I'm glad it's hot. Again, to me, it's one of those things that it's like, I hate that it is like a peer pressured into having to do it because you're taking something out that isn't, you worked hard for. And there's actually a lot of ways around it. So it's basically just emulsifying it
Mhm.
correctly as you add water. So because we proof down obviously, and it's
Yep.
basically in how you add the water. We use RO water, which is less likely to flock. That's what
Mhm.
the
Okay.
stuff is called. But I mean, none of these bottles have sat there that long, because I probably they're in my car, dug them out from somewhere. But they get stuff in them. If you leave
Yeah.
them sit for a long time, they certainly will. I probably have some in a upper cabinets I could grab. And honestly, I've been known to take a straw and try to suck it out.
Yeah. Right. As Amanda Beckwith says, flavor crystals.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever I get them in the glass, and like sometimes like a glass of scotch or something, they'll have some of that on the
yeah,
bottom, and I'll be like, I'm gonna take my finger and go taste what the flavor crystals taste like. And the funny thing is, they don't really taste like anything. They're just kind of
yeah,
there. And so I know
yeah.
that runs a little bit counter to my earlier assertion that there's flavor in it, but I don't think the flocculated part is the part where the flavor is. It's just a thing that happens when you've got the fats in there.
Yeah, that's not really, I think, how I'd have to check the science on that, but I'm not sure. But I do think it's fun to try to suck it out of the bottle.
Yeah.
You do a lot of weird things. We spend a lot of hours staring at stills, and so there's only so many hours you can watch a still run, because they run for like 5 or 6 hours.
And then
But you
you
don't
start getting goofy
occasionally do just
ideas.
weird things. So we also take our dog to work and a whole bunch of other crazy things. But sometimes you just do weird things at a distillery.
So for what it's worth, it has been cold in my house the last couple of days, and I don't see any haze in this at all at 44%. It's a little bit surprising. Normally that 46 to 47% is considered the minimum for where you worry about flock
Yeah, it's once
in a
you cross
non-chill filter
below
whiskey. Yeah.
46%, that's where it comes. No, it's truthfully how you add the water.
Mhm.
So for us, when we begin to proof it down, we always leave headspace in all of our wine finishing casks, several inches. It just simply makes for better whiskey for us. But you slowly add water, like weeks before we know we're going to bottle. And
Mhm.
doing that, if you think about it, it's literally you're just emulsifying something. So like if you make a salad dressing, you can add mustard, which is the emulsifier, or you could do it slowly and you can emulsify it correctly. If you do it quickly when you're adding your oil and vinegar, it'll flock, it'll break apart. And no matter what, the longer it sits still, you're going to get some of it, but it's a little bit in technique of how they do it. And then RO water, which is basically has nothing in it, is easier to get it to stay emulsified than say you have some kind of mineral content in there, because things like calcium in your water, which while calcium gives great for mouthfeel, it is more likely to have that occur. So places that, proof down and they have a higher calcium in it, believe there's a few other things that can do it too, but calcium is the one I'm most familiar with. You give me a textbook, I can look it up.
Yeah. We might get you to write down some technical stuff for us after the fact and over email, because this is fascinating.
We're really geeky, and I
Yeah.
love like educating on all the things we've learned over the years, because Nick and I's head is full of useless crap when it comes to this.
It's only useless until you meet somebody like us who likes the technical weird details that
Yeah,
maybe it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because ultimately it's what's in the glass, what does it taste like? I mean, what's the
yeah,
mouthfeel? And if you hadn't mentioned mouthfeel, I would never have said, this whiskey's great, except it has a weak mouthfeel, right? It actually is pretty nicely mouth coating. If I had to give one criticism, and I mean this might be what you're going for, so like it's not necessarily that it's a bad thing, but the only thing about this whiskey that sort of felt like, man, I wish there was more, was it's actually got a pretty short finish. So it's got a
yeah.
really beautiful nose. It's got a lovely mouth coating. There's complexity on the palate. There's a lot here. It goes really well in a cocktail, highball, that sort of thing,
It's
but
short.
doesn't stay around. Yeah.
I agree with that, and I think a little bit that is the nature of French oak.
Mm.
Um, and I could be wrong on this, but this is kind of my own take on this, is a lot of the Sauterne finishes where you're using something like a Sauterne cask, which is very lightly toasted. It's, really meant for that Sauterne, the light, delicate nature of it. That French oak does not give a long finish because the Olorosa has that. And so we brought two other ones. We're going to have a Chardonnay come out that uses French oak barrels. And we tried it with both French and American oak. And I much preferred the French oak because I think I'm willing to sacrifice that shorter finish for the upfront flavor because most of the customers we're going for are, I want to say, newer drinkers. They're more of like the delicate whiskey drinkers. Their flavor palette will lend themselves to liking something where they're going to get more upfront and not as much on the back end. But I agree, that is a shortcoming of that. And I think that's simply somewhat the nature of the oak because I don't feel like the Olorosa or the Madeira have that same like shortness to them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the reason why we somewhat have two expressions is like I feel like the Olorosa finish is a little bit more like for your traditional Scotch drinkers, whereas the Sauterne captures, I want to say, the non-whiskey drinker. And that's a little bit by design. But again, the short mouthfeel, I would love to see if we could correct that some way, but I think it's the nature of the French oak. Because when you're thinking of your French oak, kind of French-made wines, those lighter, whiter wines that are French, like a French Chardonnay never finishes as long to me as like that buttery kind of California Chardonnay that American oak just kind of lingers longer.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The Glenmorangie, that Nectar d'Or, whatever, that their Sauterne finish. I don't know if you guys have that one.
I don't. I think Phil does.
I do. It is currently behind my my bracket.
I think that one compared to some of the other in that very similar kind of profile where they have like their Olorosas or other finishes, that one also finishes on the shorter side comparatively. Now, I think if we aged it longer, you might get, more of that like back end flavor. But I think that might simply be the nature of those casks. Because in the Sauternes I've tried, I always feel like, even as a wine, I think Sauterne has much more like upfront punch than it does anything else. It's got that beautiful nose and then more of an upfront than it does.
Yeah, more on the arrival and not so much in the development.
Because like when I drink a Sauterne, I feel like that's very true for it too. That it's got a lot of that like fruit and those really fun like floral up front, but the back end doesn't linger. Also makes you want to drink more. So,
which is why it's potentially a valid thing to want that it doesn't stick around.
Yeah, I think at that one, it's somewhat of a nature of the beast. It's just going to be what that happens with that one. Again, I don't know. Nick might have a different opinion on it, but I'm not sure.
I hope he'll get his opinion at some point. We might have to do a part 2 and see how he feels.
We might
bringing
have to do
bringing the art side to the science of the art and science of making whiskey.
We might have to do a weekend or weeks. Yeah, crazy.
Oh, we'll figure it out.
Once you have a kid, we won't be seeing you for the first year.
So I don't know. Have we done tasting notes on the last one, Phil? I forget.
I don't believe we have, but I've got some prepared.
Yeah, go for it.
In comparison to the 11/8/22, the 1/20/23 has less of the abundant sweet florals and has a broader base of the cut vegetation and the sort of peppery edge to it. And it I think lends it more towards the flavor profile that you were talking about earlier, Doug, where it would sub well for an agave product, but it also has like this like nice warm nuttiness to the core of it that kind of levies it and keeps it from being too off the beaten path of malt whiskey.
Now I'm wondering if I got my samples mixed up, because that was what I thought that was your sample, that the agave notes kind of.
I thought that was yours because mine is all like the bright floral. I've been keeping them straight because I have everything in logoed Glencairns.
Yeah, I
Well,
did the same thing, and then I think I might have mixed them up when I was switching them around.
I have to use those like little markers and some tape
Mhm.
and put labels on everything because I can't remember what I'm doing.
It's gonna have to air out a bit before I can really tell. There's a difference between them, but it's not a huge
Mhm.
difference.
It's not huge, but it is
Yeah.
noticeable side by side. I think that if I didn't have them side by side, I might not be able to tell them apart.
Yeah.
But
I think the variations in the Sauterne over the years are like minor compared to the Olorosa because the Olorosa to me has like more variation in taste than the Sauterne does because the Sauterne I think has more consistencies in the process
mhm,
just simply because the Sauterne casks are always the same.
right.
And the
And
winemaker who's sending them to us is much more, I think, consistent in what we get than with Olorosa.
well, and with sherry and Oloroso, probably in particular, a lot of it depends on how well that floor develops and
Yeah.
whether or not it survives weather. And so frequently, um, they'll have to like change horses to put it one way mid course
Yeah.
because the floor isn't developing the way they would like. So you may have a barrel that was sort of being treated as, oh, this is going to be uh, a much drier, but now because the floor has died off and gone back and it's getting oxygenated aging rather than the, you know, Doug, I'm forgetting the word for an environment with no oxygen or little oxygen.
Anaerobic.
Yeah.
There we go. Anaerobic aging under the floor.
Yeah.
That's
I think
FLOR, by the way, for people who don't know sherry. So we're not talking about burying it under your floorboards.
That's a different post story, I believe.
Yeah.
I can
Also,
discuss those too.
also a post story. Yeah. Well, I feel like I've psyched out my palate now. I don't think I mixed up my glasses. I just think somehow we're getting different notes potentially coming out of them. So again, they're a little different, but they're not that different. And Phil, you said your favorite of the three was the Oloroso, but
Yeah.
I think, and I can see why, and I think maybe on a different day, but since it's getting hot out now, I actually like the brighter floral. Stick it in with soda or on the rocks or something like that. So my favorite is actually the bottle that I own.
Oh,
That's good.
So that's good news. And I don't think that's just Stockholm syndrome because realistically, I'm probably only going to drink about 2 ounces of any of these personally and then share the rest. But
I mean,
I love having a bottle I want to share. That's the best thing about.
Most of what's missing out of these is done by my D&D party.
Yep.
So.
Yep. It's always about sharing. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the fun of whiskey, though. It's like everybody gets to try it. To me, whiskey is very much a sharing experience. Yep. Like it's not, I'm tempted to have a glass of wine by myself occasionally, hiding in the laundry room while trying to fold laundry. And whiskey is very much like you sit and you share with neighbors, you have friends, you have a drink, you pass around a couple bottles and let everybody figure out what they want. It's a very different, expression. Yeah, it's a sharing drink.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, all that said, I could see myself making, like, every once in a while, I'll find a bottle and a cocktail that goes so well together that I just completely finish the bottle by myself. And by myself, I mean, I'll make 2 cocktails when a friend comes over. So like, I'm just focusing on it because I don't, you know the rules, Phil. We don't drink alone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny doing this. I hardly ever have a drink. Like, there's no such thing as the fun drink anymore. It's like I'm tasting a cocktail because I'm having a party with it, or I'm, trying sipping and spitting. Most everything is sipping and spitting. So,
yep.
Although I
days
did
of 3 beers and then a few cocktails, or the days of the 6 ounces of tequila In the margarita, yeah, no, we don't do that.
I made a pina colada out of the Sauterne a while ago because somebody was like, I want a pina colada recipe. And I was like, when was the last time I had a pina colada? Probably on a cruise when I was, 22 or 23. And I made it. And I was like, I drank the whole thing by myself. And I was like, yes, this is great.
Yep. So Amanda, go check out the Instagram. Amanda does a lot of cocktails and just
Yeah.
like drinking. What I love about your Instagram is that it's full of, there is no wrong way to drink your whiskey.
Yes.
And if anything, the right way to drink Swift is to drink it the wrong way.
Pretty much. I mean, I'm one of those people, like, if you give me a line in the sand, I'm going to walk over it. Like,
Right.
if you give me a rule, I'm going to break it. And I hate that people have these like hard and fast rules for whiskey. And I get if you're, doing a tasting, I get like if you're doing something serious, you should have, maybe some guidelines. But if you're sitting your ass at home on your couch, drink it how you like it. You know what I mean? Like if you want to put 3 ice cubes in it, great. If you want to mix some water in it, great. Like you go to the liquor store for the sole purpose of buying something you like. You go to the grocery store to get food you have to have to survive. You need your fiber, you need your protein, you need your fruits and veggies. Like that's the store you tend to get
Maybe
the
I
things
have
you
the
have to
wrong
have.
relationship with the grocery store because I go to the grocery store to get things I like.
See, I was just going to say I'm not sold on the fruits and veggies things, but I'm with you with everything else.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you know, uh, yeah. Once you hit after 40, like you're gonna have to like the fruits and
Yeah.
veggie
Yeah,
stage,
yeah.
you're like, okay. And you're amazed at like, oh, everything should have fiber in it, as you get older. But that's a big thing for me. It's like I don't like the rules for drinking. I think that's a
Mhm.
problem that like wine has had is that perception that wine is very rigid. And I feel like whiskey is sometimes pushing itself into that. And I don't like that because I think that's going to hurt getting younger drinkers or newer drinkers to it. Like as a
That
woman, there's a lot of preconceived notions about who should drink whiskey or who shouldn't. And it's like, that's kind of stupid. Or like people of color, any of the rest of it. It's like there's these rules made that I want to say are almost off-putting or offensive with
Mhm.
certain like spirits and wine that make people want to not try it, and that hurts the whole industry.
That's something that is sort of an important thing to bring up is that there is sort of a cultural understanding of whiskey as being a man's drink
Yeah.
that spent years being reinforced through advertisements done by advertising firms
Mhm.
who were living by, or not really living, but sort of working off of the guide that, oh, women don't drink whiskey. And my personal opinion, some of the best whiskey in the world is made by women.
Mhm.
And
That reminds me, Phil, we need to schedule that podcast.
yes, we do. But and the more that there is that pushback from the stodgy old guard who don't see fun and innovation and don't see, looking to younger, different faces to broaden the community and
Mhm.
broaden the possibilities that are available to distillers, the more harm is done to the industry as a whole.
Yeah, and I hate to see that because it's like to me it's why would you like pigeonhole yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're missing half your customers potentially, or even more.
More.
Like for us, 40% of our customers are usually women, and they tend to be younger drinkers because I think we made something approachable, and I don't take anything seriously. Like, you know,
And
That's awesome.
also,
As a demographic breakdown, that's doing better than most distilleries
Mhm.
in terms of recruiting women to drink. So
we've
congratulations.
we've
yeah,
fought hard for that. That's one of our
and it
like,
wouldn't surprise me if your label has something to do with it because this is a
mhm,
very approachable label, and a lot of labels just kind of aren't for one reason or another, and sometimes
Mhm.
it's hard to quantify.
Yep.
for
I
us
had
it
my
was
wife go through my collection and tell me what bottles does she like or what bottles does she not like. I think the prompt was pick out bottles that you feel like were not designed to be marketed to men.
Yep.
Right. Which is like the bar should be, that shouldn't be the bar. The bar should be, hey, pick out bottles you think are marketed to women. But there's none of that in the whiskey industry. I mean, maybe something like this. You've clearly been thoughtful and you're doing well in that respect. I mean, my sister-in-law went straight to this out of everything on that wall behind me. She saw this not even in an obvious position necessarily, because I have it sort of middle of the third shelf down. It's not quite the center. It's not in a prominent position. It's just where it landed, right? I wasn't trying to hide it.
Yeah.
But she was like, that one. Didn't even look at everything else. It just drew her eye immediately.
We made a big effort when we did that. Is like, when we started, there was the Texas Crown bag made by probably a company out of Canada that was like an oil derrick in a Texas bag, and it was just in your face. And so many of those like bottles leaned really masculine, and we picked a female graphic designer who did all kinds of, I want to say, like fun packaging for different food companies and stuff. And we said, make something fun, because again, our experiences always should be that whiskey should be fun. It should catch everyone's attention, and it shouldn't necessarily, look like that standard bottle. Because for me, it was about, the fox stands out. You gotta go with that. But she is feminine. That's kind of what the fox was supposed to be. She's delicate, she's feminine, she's got, that kind of winking eye. It's meant to be a little bit cheeky, like, it's, you look at it and it's kind of just fun. It gives you the information you need without being, I think, too many things in it, where it's not overly stylized. But again, it's not really something. And I mean, the always handcrafted was almost like a joke when we did it, because Nick and I were doing everything and we would kill gloves so quickly. And I said, it's true, we're making this ourselves. And it's like, we didn't put a lot of, I want to say, to it. And I know the American single malt category has been defined, but being as I'm a good Texas girl, it's not coming off the bottle. I'm going with Texas whiskey. And I don't care that I don't fit the profile of Texas whiskey or not. Like, I always believe people should be proud of where they come from. If you're from California or from DC or you're from Missouri, I don't care where you're from, like home, wherever your home is, that's you. Like, display it proudly, like be who you are.
I would also like to just point out, you mentioned that you don't really fit the Texas profile, and I would argue we could have a dozen distillers on a round table, and all of them would have whiskeys that they might be able to claim falls outside of the Texas whiskey profile, because I don't think that there is one Texas whiskey profile.
Yeah.
And I think that there are some big brands that have sort of put a peg in the wall and said that's the Texas profile. But
as Texans, we also like to be, as I always explain, not that. So like, if you tell a Texan, we're gonna all wear blue today, we're all wearing some color of the rainbow, not blue. I feel like that's a very like Texas mentality. If somebody says barbecue has to be brisket, and they're like, I'm making pork ribs, like it might be a cultural thing.
Right. But I mean,
but
Texas is so broad, and there are so many distilleries doing different things that you can't really point to one distillery or one style and say that is the Texas style.
Yeah, I think you could. I have the Crowded Barrel 12 Days of Texas Whiskey they released in I guess it was December 2023 that I still have tasted. I've tasted like half of them, but I haven't reviewed any of them. Some of them, and I'm not naming names, some of them they have grain faults. All right, they're not even necessarily all great, like high quality whiskey, but I think there's an ordering. There's a way to put them all next to each other so that there's something in common every step of the way.
Yeah.
But if you go to opposite ends of the list, it's just nothing in common. So I would think the big guys, Balcones and Garrison Brothers, probably the most well-known, biggest, most mind share, at least, Texas whiskey brands. And what they have in common is stone fruit. and also an intense oakiness, even
Yeah.
even the Balcones single malt. And then you go to Andalusia, which I think is unapologetically Texan. They literally smoke their barley in a smokehouse out back.
Yeah.
And they have almost nothing in common flavor profile with either of those two distilleries. So what is Texas whiskey style really?
I think a lot of times what I define it as is they're bold.
Mm-hmm.
Like, while I don't think Garrison and Andalusia or even like Still ATX have any, I want to say, common flavor notes, they're
Mhm.
all bold in their flavors, right? That the flavors that stand out in a Texas whiskey really stand out. Like Andalusia, you can always taste like, it tastes like
Mm.
Andalusia. You know what it is. It's got that boldness to it. So I do think, I mean, I think they stay in their stylized things. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call ours bold, but we stick to that stylized thing. Because, like, like
Mhm.
McCarthy's or even St. George, some of the older ones as they started, I feel like they didn't do that as much. They had very different profiles for what they were doing in their whiskeys, or there's a couple other ones in there. I don't think High West is one that I would kind of categorize as being very different in their styles, but that's one of the things I think is like that stylized opinion of where you're going and you stick with it. Maybe that defines Texas whiskey because
That's actually a really good point, because I think no matter whether, like, sometimes I like Garrison Brothers and sometimes I'm like, it's really oaky bourbon and that's not necessarily the thing that I like. But I always will say Garrison Brothers is really good at being Garrison Brothers.
yeah,
So it makes sense that if that is the Texas style, I think that makes sense. And it definitely fits in that cultural ethos you were talking about.
we slam the flag down and say
Mhm.
this is mine and we're sticking with it. Like,
Yep.
that's, I feel like that goes with, like, even we have that. It's like, once you plant your flag and say, hey, this is me, we're gonna own it, like they all own what they do. And so that, because I think when I've tried a lot of the other ones, like, Westland and Westward are two that I feel like I have a hard time thinking they're like far ends of each other go together. You know what I mean? Like, I like a lot of what they've done over the years, but if you taste like one of Westland's versus something on the kind of opposite end of what they were doing, they don't go. And I sometimes feel that way with scotches. Like Glenmorangie is one that I like sometimes, and other times I think, ooh, like there's just something very, it's too outside of what I think. Highland Park is another one that does that for me. I love some of Highland Park's expressions, and then other times they're really outside of what I think you're gonna get. You know what I mean? Sometimes
Mhm.
I go in things blind, right? I get a taste of something and I don't know anything about it, and I couldn't pinpoint who that belonged to. Like, if you taste Garrison Brothers, you know it belongs to Garrison Brothers. If you taste Andalusia, you know it belongs to them. Still ATX, that's the same thing. I feel like that's actually what makes Texans unique for whiskey making, is that, Milam and Green, no matter kind of whether it's their rye or their bourbon or what they're making, it's them. Like, that thread is there. And I don't feel like that's the case a lot of times. Like, Japanese whiskey is that way for me. They very like plant their flag and what they're gonna do and then own it. Like, so maybe they're like
Yeah.
us in a way.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great note to kind of wrap up on here.
Yeah,
We are approaching an hour and 45 minutes. It was a great time to wrap up, and my dog needs to be fed. So,
it's okay.
uh,
I need to go to bed because I'm old and I get up at 5 a.m.
so thanks for giving us so much time today, Amanda. I know
Yeah,
it was probably more
absolutely.
than you bargained for, but we were having a great conversation.
No, this is fun. I'm happy to answer any geeky questions going forward. I love them. Nick and I love the nerdy facts.
We'll put them in an email, and we'll probably collect enough questions to do another episode with the two of you, which I'm actually really looking forward to.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to grab my favorite dram of the evening, which was the Sauterne, and I'm going to put it in my Whiskey Lodge glass, as one must.
Yes.
And I will say thanks again very much. Thank you, Amanda, for being
Yeah,
here.
thank you guys.
And until next time, we'll see you in the lodge.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Sláinte.